Hi, and thank you for watching us here at Tax Talk UK, where we talk about all things tax and try to help you to navigate the tax system as it applies to you. As part of our bite-sized demo series in completing a self-assessment tax return online, today we're going to look at completing the interest section, the UK interest section of the self-assessment tax return. Before I do that, if I could please ask, if you're new here, please do take a moment to subscribe to our YouTube channel. That way you'll easily be able to navigate back to this information if you need to, as well as being able to find a whole host of information all aimed at helping you to navigate the tax system as it applies to you in relation to completion of a self-assessment tax return. If you navigate to the playlist section of our YouTube channel, you will find the playlist with the bite-size demo series all available. So back then to completing the self-assessment tax return and the interest section. So you will remember in the initial stages of submitting your self-assessment tax return, you will have completed the tailor your return section. And the sections, if you have a specific income from a specific source, if you answer yes to that question in tailor your return, then you will be shown the relevant pages. If you select no, then you won't. So if you, for example, if you have UK interest to declare and you're not presented with the page, then just pop back to the tailor your return to make sure that you did select yes to that question. So let's just have a look at the page. So here we have the fill in your return UK interest page. So it's quite basic and you just really need to read the questions and make sure you're putting the information in the right box. If you're not sure what a question means, as always, there's the help section on the drop down underneath each question, which will give you more information. Something that we do get asked a lot, if you have an ISA and you have interest from an ISA, that is not only tax-free, but it's what we'd call as outside of the scope. So that means that effectively you don't need to put that any income from any interest from an ISA account on your self-assessment tax return. So if you have received interest from an ISA and you don't have any other UK interest, then you would select no to that question. But perhaps you might have some general interest from a bank or building society as well as an ISA, and you would just ignore that ISA interest for the purposes of completing your self-assessment tax return. So we're basically looking to know whether that interest has been taxed or not by the bank or the building society. If they send you a certificate, this will clarify it. Generally, the interest hasn't been taxed these days. But also when you look at your statement, the interest, it might say net interest or gross interest. If it's gross interest, that's before tax. And if it's net interest, it means that it has been taxed. If you do believe that the bank or building society have taxed your interest, then you will need to ask them to provide you a certificate of that. So it's just important, obviously, to put it in the correct box. Net amount after tax has been taken off. So this is for taxed UK interest. So if you have only received interest that hasn't been taxed, you would leave this box blank. And untaxed UK interest is for the amount where the bank or builder society haven't deducted any tax. So even if you don't have sufficient interest to use all your allowance, you still should put the relevant information on this section for completeness. Although it wouldn't be sufficient reason in itself if you'd earned interest, UK interest, under your personal savings allowance to necessarily complete a self-assessment tax return in its own right. But if you are completing a self-assessment tax return, then you should put the correct figures on. So as I say, it's just making sure that you put it in the right box as to whether it's been taxed or not. And then finally, if you've received any foreign interest up to 2,000 that hasn't been taxed, then you can enter that figure here rather than having to submit a foreign income section. So quite basic. Hopefully that helps you to understand how to complete this section if you do have UK interest to declare. Quite as I say, quite basic questions. It's just a case of making sure you put the figures in the right box, because as always, putting figures in the wrong box can impact your liability, which will impact your impact your total income, which would impact your liability. Once you have completed the submission, completed all of the fields, you will get the option to view your tax calculation, and that is a good way of checking that you have completed as you think that you intended to. Because, for example, if you've put UK interest on that return, then you would expect to see that on the calculation of the amount, and that can be a good way of checking. So just make sure that you review that at the end. And of course, if you're not sure or your matters are quite complex, then we would suggest that you seek the help of a professional to be able to ensure that your return is accurate. And if you are engaging a professional to help you, please do make sure that they're qualified for what they're helping you with, or the advice they're giving you, that they're a member of a professional body if relevant, and that they do hold relevant insurance. So hopefully this has been helpful. As I mentioned, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to the channel. Thank you. Goodbye.